Hello, everyone. My name is Rufus Thibodeaux, and welcome to another episode of Promise and Purpose, where we talk about the transformative power of God's Word and how that links to us discovering our purpose and unlocking our untapped potential. And today I'm excited to be with Dr. Bill Harley. He's a world-renowned marriage counselor and the author of the best-selling book, His Needs, Her Needs. And so welcome to the show.
Well,
We
thank
have a
you. I'm
lot of
delighted.
Yes, we met. I met him at a marriage roundtable a couple weeks ago. I was impressed. Got some notes for my own marriage, and which have been working phenomenally, by the way. I did give you credit. I thought about whether or not to say that was my own ideas, but it's been great. So yeah, so I'm excited to talk with you. So I know that we have a lot in common with real estate and marriage and all kinds of stuff. So why don't you start by maybe just introducing yourself and tell a little bit about your background and the work that you do.
Well, I started out in college and as a math major. I was not particularly interested in psychology. My dad was a psychologist, and
Hmm.
I thought most of what he did was witchcraft. And
Okay.
so I basically wanted to get into science, and so I got into artificial intelligence.
Hmm.
At the time, I was dating my wife. Who became my wife. And when I graduated from high school, I was only 5'3". I tried to enlist in the Marines, but I was too short.
Wow.
They wouldn't take me. And I grew a foot in my first 2 years of college.
Okay.
By then the girl I dated, Joyce, started considering me as a possible husband
Okay.
because of my height. Finally, I got to a height she would accept.
Nice.
And I started out with maybe 5 years of not knowing what I wanted to do,
Okay.
and I supported my family by selling real estate.
Okay.
So I was a real estate salesman, and I was in school, and my wife was home with the kids, and I was making a lot of money in real estate, but I decided to get a degree in psychology of all things
Yeah.
after I had decided that I didn't want to go into psychology. Finally, I said, I think I'll go into psychology. They gave me a heck of a deal at the university. They said that I could get through in 3 years without a master's degree. So the University of California at Santa Barbara
Hmm.
gave me a ticket to get through all my everything was paid for,
Okay.
and something I had to accept. So I got a PhD in psychology, and I'm a
Hmm.
clinical psychologist today.
Gotcha.
Um, During my early years, I actually had a there.
Okay.
So in the middle of my conversation with you, I didn't
Hey,
like the
got to do what you
lighting.
got to do. Yeah. Get the lighting right.
So anyway, the basic idea was that people were coming to me with their marriage problems.
Okay.
And I would tell them I don't know anything about marriage problems. I don't have any marriage problems myself,
Yeah.
and um, I can't help you. But they would come anyway, and I didn't help anybody. And so I thought God is telling me something.
Okay.
If people are coming to me with marriage problems, and here I am, a clinical psychologist, they thought I should know something about that. And I decided God is telling me I need to know something about marriage.
Okay.
So I did an internship, and I learned about all the methods that were being used to help people. And the process that I was in the Twin Cities at the time, teaching at Bethel College. And after the 2 years, I was thoroughly convinced that none of those people knew what they were doing.
Okay.
And the guy that was the head of the clinic, and it was a very well-known marriage clinic, got divorced while I was there.
Wow.
So
Okay.
so I basically decided that I would go to work and try to figure it out myself, because these
Gotcha.
guys didn't seem to know what they were doing. And so I had a whole lot of people that I was working with, students at Bethel, that were falling in and out of love. And I said, there is something about the topic of love that is an important thing for me to understand.
Yeah.
And so I started studying the business of love. What is it that causes people to be in love? What causes them to be out of love? And I was working with students that were coming in and out of love by the week.
Yeah, I'm
So
sure.
there was plenty of things for them to tell me what was happening. What were they doing? What made it work? And so I did a lot of research. And my basic argument was this: I come from a conservative Christian background. And my attitude about marriage is that when you come to me for marriage counseling, I'm going to remind you that when you marry, you're marrying somebody that you have committed yourself to for God Himself.
Yes.
And so marriage is a serious business, and you need to recognize that it has spiritual implications. And if you don't feel like staying with your spouse, make sure that God is in on your decision, because I know for a fact that He would not support a decision for you to get a divorce. Well,
Right.
that argument that I had did not work.
Okay.
And I was counseling pastors and missionaries and people that were very conservative, and they were all getting divorced.
Wow.
So I decided that the business of understanding love, as much as it bothered me to think that that should be the only reason to stay married, I was a practical enough person to recognize that, okay, if I'm going to save marriages, maybe what I need to do is learn how to teach people to fall in love, because nobody that's in love wants
Yeah.
to get a divorce.
Right.
It's
Yes.
true.
Yes. Makes
And so,
sense.
okay. So I'm going to save marriages by teaching people to fall in love and stay in love. So I separated myself from the marriage business by focusing mostly on romantic love instead of communication, which was the go-to approach. How do you communicate better?
Sure.
How do you come to agreements, and how do you get along? Okay,
Sure.
so basically, I was more into how do you have a passionate relationship.
Okay.
And my business, I had people coming to me from everywhere.
Wow.
And my very first um, couple that really got me started was at Northwest Airlines, and I saved their marriage. And before long, I had 400 couples from Northwest Airlines.
Wow.
you know,
Wow. Yeah.
and I quit my job. I started clinics. I started mental health clinics, but I personally was focusing mostly on marriage.
Okay.
And I taught people how to fall in love and stay in love. And that's what I did. And I had a program, still do.
Yeah.
You read my book, His Needs, Her Needs.
Yeah.
That's how it's done. That's the guidebook. If you want to be in love, you just do what it says there in that book, and you'll be in love.
Yeah.
And it has worked. I developed it in the mid 1970s, and here it is in the mid 2020s, 50 years later,
Wow.
and I'm still going strong. I have clients all over the world. I'm still writing. I have a website. I have a daily radio show.
Yeah.
I'm busy.
That's
With all my,
fantastic.
and I'm very happy to do what I'm doing, because I know it works. The people that I counsel, they end up. I save marriages, and I think that's a tremendous mission that God has appointed to me, and I never would have guessed that that's what God wanted me to do.
I
I
love
never would
that.
have guessed it.
I love saving marriage. That's a pretty high calling. It's very important. I listened to your daily program. In fact, the day after, well, no, actually, the same day. Did you do a broadcast the same day that you had the marriage roundtable, or was it maybe the next day? Do you recall?
The next day I did one.
Okay, because you
Yeah,
and
I
your
think.
wife were on there. You were on there, and
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
referenced some of this stuff.
If we don't do it every day, you get yesterday's show. So
Gotcha. Yeah,
the
I loved it. It's
basic
great
there's
information.
always a show up there.
Okay. Yeah, and that's a really pretty comprehensive website that you have there. So yeah, I love it.
Thank you.
So let me ask this. Let's talk about the love bank concept.
Yeah.
So how does the love bank affect couples, especially, you know, marriage? And then what can they do to keep that love bank filled with love?
Okay. So the basic idea is, how do you fall in love?
Okay.
And the answer is that you make love bank deposits that breach the romantic love threshold.
Okay.
And so everybody's got a love bank. When you associate a person with good feelings,
Yeah.
their uh, love units are deposited.
Okay.
And if you deposit enough love units, you can breach what I call the romantic love threshold.
Okay.
And generally speaking, um, these love units are best deposited. You deposit the most love units when you are meeting what I call intimate emotional needs.
Okay.
And the first 4 chapters of my book, His Needs, Her Needs, are about intimate emotional needs, which make the most love bank deposits.
Okay.
The rest of the book is about 6 more emotional needs that also make love bank deposits, but not as many as the first 4.
Okay.
So the basic idea is that if you want somebody to be in love with you, all you have to do is learn what their emotional needs are, learn how to do a good job meeting them. You're going to deposit enough love units, and they'll be in love with you. You can have 50 people in love with you if you meet enough people's love bank, make enough love bank deposits. And this is what happens to people like myself. I'm in the business of helping people with
Yeah.
their problems, and that's one of the best ways of making love bank deposits.
Okay.
So here I am trying to help people, and all I'm trying to do is help. I don't want them to be in love with me,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they end up being in love with me
Of
because
course.
I'm making love bank deposits, you know.
Right.
And so the 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 my whole course of work turned then to infidelity,
Okay.
because I recognize that the problem with romantic love is that it is such a great motivator. I mean, if you're in love with somebody, you're willing to give up anything to be with that person.
Sure. Sure.
And
Sure.
so, even though it's a wonderful thing in marriage, it's a horrible thing outside of marriage if
Okay.
you're married to somebody.
Yeah.
And so, what I talk a lot about in my book, His Needs, Her Needs, at the end, is guarding your love bank from outside threats.
Okay.
And the bullet line of the book used to be, um, building an affair-proof marriage.
Okay.
I've changed the bullet line now, but the basic idea is that being in love with your spouse is extremely important for marriage, but it's also important that once you understand what it takes to be in love, you got to be careful not to be in love with somebody else.
Okay.
And the question is, what are you going to do to prevent yourself from being in love with somebody else that's also meeting your emotional needs? And so I have kind of a 2-pronged approach here. Number one is, make sure your spouse's love bank is full,
Yeah.
but always make sure nobody else's love bank is full. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I am very well known for my work in avoiding infidelity,
Okay.
but it's all part of this business of being in love,
Gotcha.
and how wonderful it is when it's done right, when it's in your marriage. And it's important to recognize that the passion that you have in your marriage can last the rest of your life. Joyce and I have been married 61 years. We
Wow.
are passionately in love with each other.
That's
We have
fantastic.
not missed a beat when it comes to romantic love,
Yeah.
but it's because we continue to make love bank deposits. We keep them coming
Yeah.
every day, and I think that that's basically my theory. I also talk about avoiding love bank withdrawals.
Okay.
I wrote the book, Love Busters. I talk about how to make decisions together that work for both of you.
Okay.
Um, and that way you make decisions that also make love bank deposits. Um, but the basic idea is that I am somebody that understands romantic love,
Okay.
and I know how to get it. I know how to lose it. I know how to help people create it for themselves in their marriages, and that's my claim to fame. That's what I do best.
Nice. So let's talk about some of the things that mess up relationships. So like what would you say are some of the common things that cause trouble in relationships? And then how can couples stop those things from wrecking the relationship?
Well, first of all, you have to understand that romantic love is magic.
Okay.
It creates an instinct that helps you avoid some of marriage's greatest obstacles.
Okay.
Um, and so when you're in love, generally speaking, you are kind to each other, you're patient, you're generous,
Yeah.
you do all the right things. But what can often happen in life is that life situations like having a child, for
Yes.
example,
Sure.
can disrupt all of this. See,
Yes.
and and we now have ourselves a baby who is up all night and is crying, and we are now associating each other with love bank withdrawals. See,
Gotcha.
so it has nothing to do with intent. It's just that I'm not happy and you're sitting there next to me. So it
Right.
happens. So what happens in some marriages is that you face adversity. You face adversity, and you start making love bank withdrawals, not because you're hurting each other
Yeah.
intentionally, but because you're just not happy. Your situation has become unpleasant for whatever reason.
Sure.
And children are the number one cause of, of divorce.
Is
I
that
don't know
right?
if people realize that.
I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
the more children you have, the higher the probability of divorce.
Okay.
And it's so wrong. It's so
Yeah.
wrong. I mean, the more children you have, the more committed you should be. But at the same time, the more children you have, the more money you got to make,
That's true.
the
Yeah.
more sacrifices you have to make, the less time you have alone with each other. Um, and so people fall out of love.
Yeah.
And so the trick is, first of all, when people fall out of love, then they're not as nice to each other anymore, and they argue more with each other,
Yeah.
and they try to get things for themselves at the expense of the other person. They don't feel cared for anymore, and so I've got a couple in front of me now that hate each other. Both of them hate each other. Why are they even seeing me for counseling? The
Hmm.
answer is because the pastor referred them to me, and somehow or other I'm supposed to put their marriage together.
Wow.
But they do not want to be with each other. They don't even want to be in the same room with each other.
Okay.
How do I get a couple like that to fall in love? And the answer is, first of all, I look at them and I say, will you do exactly what I tell you to do? And they say, well, for how long? 3 months. Three
Okay.
months. Give me 3 months. Do
Oh,
exactly what I tell you to do for 3 months.
okay.
And so I give them a list of things they have to do. First of all, they can they can never make a demand. They can never show disrespect. They can never get angry. And they can never do anything if the other person objects to it.
Okay.
Okay? I avoid the negatives that way. And then I say to them, I want you to spend a minimum of 15 hours a week with each other having fun. Now, you don't have to have sex. You don't have to be affectionate. You don't even have to talk much, but you have
Okay.
to have fun. You have
Fun
to
is
have
defined
fun
by who? Fun is defined by which
by both
couple?
of them.
Okay.
What would be fun for both of you?
Okay.
Well, they could go see a concert together. They could go fishing.
Okay.
If you have a wife that's willing to go fishing, you know,
Right.
anything. Start with recreation. Build on that. Build on that conversation.
Okay.
talk to each other in a respectful way. Um, Tell each other things you like about each other. I mean, you go through a bunch of things where you're
Sure.
making love bank deposits, you're not making love bank withdrawals, and I give them a test. I give them a test every month, sometimes every week.
Okay.
I want to see. I have a test that measures how many love units there are in the love bank. And if I see those numbers going up, I know I'm headed in the right direction.
Sure. Okay.
If the numbers are stay low, I go back to the drawing board. I'm doing something wrong.
Okay.
But basically, if a couple stays with me and stays focused, we want to save this marriage, okay? They will eventually get to a point where they don't hate each other anymore.
Okay.
They merely dislike each other.
Yes.
That's an improvement.
It's an improvement. Sure. Sure.
Now we get to a point where they don't feel anything one way or another.
Okay.
That's an improvement. And then they start liking each other.
Hmm.
And eventually, when I'm done with them, I look at their love bank inventory and I look at them and I say, "You're in love, aren't you?"
Wow.
And I do not have to talk to them at all about sex.
Okay.
I don't have to tell them that they have to have sex with each other. It
Yeah.
all just comes out very naturally.
Sure.
Now, if I were in the business of weight loss counseling, it'd be essentially the same thing.
Okay.
Same thing. I know how to get you to lose your weight. You just do exactly what I tell you to do, and you will lose weight, guaranteed. In marriage, it's more complicated. Marriage is more complicated than weight loss.
Okay.
But again, it's doing what you have to do to make the marriage work.
Sure.
And
Sure.
what you have to do is make love bank deposits and avoid withdrawals. Now, let me take you in an entirely different direction.
Okay.
I am a Christian. The most important thing for me to do in life is to serve God. What God wants me to do is care for others.
Right.
He wants me to care for others as if I was caring for Him.
Hmm.
So I look at marriage and I say marriage is a wonderful opportunity to show extraordinary care for another human being.
Sure.
I've chosen Joyce to be my wife. So before God, I have promised to care for her in a way that I don't care for anyone else. I care for her better than anyone else. As it turns out, caring for Joyce in an extraordinary way makes massive love bank deposits.
Wow.
And so the love bank is a litmus test
Yeah.
of whether you're doing the right thing. If your spouse is crazy about you,
Yeah.
you're showing an extraordinary amount of care.
Right.
And so the two kind of are different sides of the same coin. So if you're a believer that we should care for each other because God, that's what God wants us to do.
Right.
I want to show you how to care for your spouse in the way God wants you to care for your spouse. In the final analysis, you'll be doing the very same thing that you'd be doing if all you were interested in was making love bank deposits.
Wow.
As it
So
as
go
it
ahead.
turns out, I can motivate people more by telling them to make love bank deposits than I can following the will of God. That's a shame, but that's how it turns out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, but I mean, so here's the interesting thought, I guess, as you were talking about that. So you've been married 61 years. You,
Yep.
by the way, when is your anniversary? What month?
It is December the 15th.
Okay, so mine is December the 29th. Interesting.
Ah,
Yeah.
pretty close.
Pretty
Yep.
close, yeah. So it sounds to me like, well, I guess let me ask you this. Are you sort of built a system around what you and your wife have done naturally?
No,
And oh, you didn't.
no,
Okay. All right.
no. Basically, I didn't know why we were in love. I had no
Ah,
idea. I had no idea.
Okay.
My attitude was, I've been in love with my wife ever since I was a kid.
Okay.
Um, I met her when she was 13. I was 14. I was in love.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Okay.
what it was. My wife is gorgeous.
Yeah.
She still is today. And she was making massive love bank deposits every time I look at her, you know. And
Right.
she didn't have to do anything. She didn't have to read a book. She
Just
didn't
show
have to
up, right?
practice anything. Just
Yeah.
show
Yeah.
up, you
Right.
know.
Right.
I on the other hand had to learn to do a few things.
Yeah.
But again, I didn't know what it was. I
Okay.
couldn't tell you what it was that got me to her to fall in love with me. I had to study it through the eyes of other people.
Okay.
I had to tell me what is it that makes you attracted to somebody else? What is it? Tell me what it is. Tell me what this other person is doing. That's how I came up with this whole program. I
Gotcha.
learned it from other people that were and then it made sense. Then I could see what I had been doing.
Okay.
But I became aware of it through the eyes of other people that I was working with.
Gotcha. That makes sense. That makes sense. So what about this? I mean, we're all super busy. I mean, especially couples. So how do you? I mean, how can couples manage that with all the you mentioned 15 hours a week? I mean, with all the craziness and especially the kids. I mean, we love kids. I've got 4 kids. I mean, so how do people manage with all of that?
Yeah, basically, I have on the website you'll see one of the tabs, romantic love
Okay.
and romantic dating. I think it says romantic dating. I'm sorry, romantic dating is
Okay.
what it says.
Sure.
And so in there, I have a series of 23 articles, and it takes you first of all to the problem of how do we meet each other's most important emotional needs in a situation where dual careers and small children.
Gotcha.
And and basically I take that situation and I say, okay, how can you create romantic love in that environment?
Gotcha.
And so I take the reader through 4 couples.
Hmm.
The first couple, they had their first child. They've just fallen out of love, but they kind of know what to do to get it back and they get it pulled together.
Okay.
Then the next couple, their children are a little bit older and they have grown apart. They're
Hmm.
doing different things. They're not connected to the same. They have their own interests. They have their own recreational. They have their own friends. Show them how to reorganize their entire life. Third couple hate each other. How do I get them
Hmm.
back into a romantic relationship? And then the fourth couple never did love each other.
Hmm. Okay.
Um, and then then I have a whole series on obstacles. What are your obstacles? We cannot afford babysitting.
Hmm.
We are too busy. We are, we have a disabled child.
Okay.
We have what I do is I try to come up with everything that I could think of
Sure.
that prevent people from giving each other 15 hours a week of undivided attention. And it's kind of like, if you want to lose weight, I guarantee you that you can lose weight if you do exactly what I tell you to do. And I know I'm right because I've helped people lose 100 pounds,
Wow.
100 pounds and more. But they do what I tell them to do.
Right.
See?
Yeah. Which makes a
So
difference.
here's a couple that I say, all right, 15 hours of undivided attention. Now what you got to do is what you got to do what I tell you to do.
Yeah.
You've got the time. You got the time. It's just that you're spending it doing something else.
Gotcha. Sure. Sure.
So I can solve you the financial problem for you. I can solve the issue of your kids don't want you to be away from. They want you to be home. You're both working full time.
Sure.
Um, you aren't getting enough time with your kids as it is. Can you justify spending time alone? Why not just bring the kids along? Nope, can't have the kids with her. Got to be alone. And but anyway, it's a formula that has worked so well that I just uh and it's this business of coaching, and I'm sure you've done some coaching yourself.
Sure.
Tom Landry said coaching is getting people to do what they don't want to do so they can be what they want to be.
Wow, that's powerful.
And that is what I do.
That's what you do.
And
Nice. How many marriages do you think that you've saved? I mean, if you had to put a number on it,
well,
thousands.
I've written, his and the attorneys probably sold about 5 million books by now. And I've had people from all over the world telling me that the book itself saved their marriage.
Yeah.
um, the website reaches countries all over the world. You can translate my website into 140 different languages by
Wow.
using Google Translate.
Yeah.
Just apply it to a page. There it is in your language.
Yeah.
I would have to estimate millions of couples.
Lots of people. Well, that's a big, yeah, it's a big problem. And it's interesting. It's such a, I mean, it's a simple solution, but it's not easy, probably, right? I mean, it's simple.
No,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
So let's talk about decision making. You mentioned that earlier. And of course I heard what you shared in the marriage roundtable, but how do you do that? I mean, getting couples to agree on stuff. I mean, what's your just maybe talk about the philosophy on that decision making process.
well, first of all, you have to think about love units again.
Okay.
Everything boils down to love units. So tell me what decision you and your wife could make that would make love bank deposits into both of your love banks simultaneously.
Gotcha.
Well, that's a decision that both of you would have to be happy with. Okay.
Gotcha. Okay.
So don't make any decisions that don't make love bank deposits into both of your love banks. And so I have what's called the policy of joint agreement. Never do anything without an enthusiastic agreement between you and your spouse. Now, people have come up with objections for that. They say, if you knew my husband is not enthusiastic about anything. How can I get an enthusiastic agreement from
Yeah.
somebody that just has a scowl on his face all day? And my argument is, well, what we're interested in is creating a lifestyle that's going to make this guy happy.
Okay.
I want to see a smile on his face. I want to see him enthusiastic about what it is you do together as a couple, because that's the only way you can make love bank deposits. Now, if somebody comes to me and they're clinically depressed,
Yeah.
that person, whoever they're married to, is not going to be able to make love bank deposits into that person's love bank because their clinical depression prevents them from being happy.
Okay.
And so they're not going to be in love with anybody,
Okay.
you know. And so to some extent, you have special cases where, if a person's clinically depressed, you got to deal with that too. So I'm dealing with a couple. Here's a guy that's clinically depressed, has nothing to do with his wife, has to do with his job. So I'd help him with the job situation so that he can get happy. And then his wife is able to make love bank deposits. So there are special cases where just being together 15 hours a week isn't going to do it.
Okay.
So you have to deal with these other issues that are preventing the person from just being happy about anything.
Sure.
But my argument has been that the 15 hours that you and your wife spend have to be the happiest 15 hours of your week. So think about all the joy you have in life.
Yeah.
Your wife has to be there when it happens. And you have to be there when she is having joy. So the decisions you make have to do with lifestyle.
Yeah.
Where are we going to live? What kind of a car are we going to drive? Who our friends are going to be? What kind of food do we eat? All of those things have to be things that make us both happy at the same time.
Yeah.
It sounds really superficial, and as a Christian, I'm not a superficial person.
Yeah.
I have deep commitment to the Lord. But man, does that approach work?
Yeah. Well, if it
And
works, yeah,
so
if it works, that's all that matters. You know what I mean?
that's what I think, you know.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah. So, well, let's get personal for just a second. I'm curious, how did you discover your purpose? I mean, obviously, this is something that's brought, you satisfaction, brought satisfaction to a lot of people. How did you first discover your sense of purpose? And what advice would you give to people that are still struggling, sort of, to find the sense of, deeper sense of meaning and satisfaction for their life?
yeah, it took me quite a while to get. I am purpose driven, but I was at a loss to understand what purpose I should commit myself to.
Okay.
I mean, there were a lot of different purposes. You and I talked earlier about the fact that I started out when I was in college. I supported my family by selling real estate.
Okay.
And there for a while, I thought that was a great purpose.
Sure.
But I looked around me and saw the way in which their lives were going, and I thought that I was in it primarily for the money.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to do something else. I actually was going to be a pastor.
Really? Okay.
I actually enrolled in Fuller Seminary. And 2 weeks before I started, Joyce told me that she didn't want to move there. I'd actually gotten her a job, and we had an apartment and everything. And she just started crying. She didn't want to move.
Wow.
And I said, the Lord is leading me into a different career. You know, I'm not going to be a pastor.
Yeah.
If Joyce isn't on board,
Yeah.
I'm not
Can't
going
do
to
it.
do it. I can't do it. But men change their careers on average 7 times during their lifetime.
Really? Okay. That
On
sounds about right.
average,
Okay. Yeah.
you know, and my attitude is my mission in life has been saving marriages, but it's been a lot of other things too. So
Okay.
I don't think purpose has to be one thing.
Right. Okay.
My I would say my overall goal in life is to serve the Lord. Okay, there's the overarching. Under that, I would put never hurting anybody.
Okay.
I never want to hurt anybody. I want to help people as much as I can.
Yeah.
So it's kind of in that order, you know.
Yeah.
I want to look to the Lord for my guidance. I don't want to do anything to hurt people.
Yeah.
I want to help people however I can. And then under that is I got to make a living doing something, you
Yeah.
know.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
and and so it
Yeah.
all has to be in that context of purpose. And my life is about over, and I hate to think of it in those terms because I've been very, very happy with the way I live. I
Yeah.
don't want to die, even though I'm going to be with the Lord in heaven. I
Yeah.
like it here. I like it
You're right.
here on earth, you know.
Sure.
And I don't want to end this adventure that I've got. And I encourage men to think of life as a wonderful adventure and to choose a partner that can join them in that adventure and be the two of them can be a team working together to achieve a common adventure.
Yeah.
And Joyce has been with me the entire time. And I have to tell you that I'm the kind of person that would go down a number of rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Um,
I love it.
and she has prevented me from going down many of them.
Yes.
You
I
know,
can relate to that. I can
that
relate
is
to
not
that.
where it's not in my best interest or the interest of her. But at the same time, we have stuck together and we have not gone anywhere or done anything until we're in an enthusiastic agreement about where we're headed. And so the question you asked a little earlier about decision making, you know,
Yeah.
how do you make decisions? You make them together. You make your decisions together. You learn from each other. You grow with each other. You don't do anything to show disrespect. Disrespect is a huge love buster in marriage. You say one disrespectful thing to each other, and it's a showstopper. Now the question is, how can I respect my spouse when my spouse is doing so many stupid things?
Yeah.
The answer is, don't say anything disrespectful. What you can say is, I would not do that if I were you. My policy of joint agreement is a big help in making spouses avoid doing foolish things. If you think your spouse is doing something foolish, you bring the policy of joint agreement out and say, Dr. Harley says we can't do anything unless we're in an enthusiastic agreement. And what you're doing is not something that I am enthusiastic about. That should end the topic. Then
Yeah.
okay, then what else can we do? See?
Yeah.
And I gotta say that men and women are made to be together. They are. God created man and women that the two would become one. I'm a big believer in marriage. I'm a big believer in families.
Yeah.
It's what God told us to be. And as far as our vocation in life is concerned, it should be done with the enthusiastic agreement of the woman that we're married with.
That makes
And we
sense.
and she should be on board.
That makes sense. When you mentioned decision making, I thought about my wife, and when I think about hearing the voice of God, it's amazing how often the voice of God sounds like my wife's voice. That's
Ah.
is that so yeah, you stay
I
in you
have exactly the same approach to things.
yeah, is that
I
something?
think I think I think my wife is closer to the Lord than I am.
Yes, yes, yes. I agree with that. In fact, when I was sort of getting,
Yeah.
I had sort of fallen off the track a little bit. I didn't go too far, but I said to my wife, because I had a lot of questions, and about my dad had died and just a lot of stuff, and so, um, but I said, I trust you. I know the Lord is there, and I know He loves me, but for some reason, the communication is not connecting here. But you talk to Him, and you let me know what He says, and then I'll follow that. And that worked out pretty good. That worked out pretty good. But I like you. I mean, I married up, and so I've got my wife is my life coach, so it's really interesting. We have a great relationship. So, all right. So we talked about a lot of different things about marriage and a lot of stuff. You mentioned about decision making, all that stuff. So, what are some of the top things that a person could do? They want to get their marriage back on track. I mean, obviously, maybe the top thing is hiring you. I don't know if are you retired? Are you still counseling marriages now?
I counsel 4 or 5 hours a day.
Wow.
Yeah, still
Okay.
doing it. Yeah.
So maybe that might be the top thing
Okay.
as comes to you.
So
Yeah.
here's where you begin. You
Okay.
begin. We have a website,
All right.
marriagebuilders.com.
Okay.
Go to the basic concept section, basic concept, and you will find a very short review of my basic concepts.
Okay.
And it tells you there are 10 of them, tells you what it's all about.
Okay.
You can read it in 15 minutes. Doesn't take you that long.
Okay.
There's more detail, of course, if you want to get into detail, but the summary's there. The next thing you want to know is, what can we do to improve our marriage? So we have questionnaires free of charge. We don't
Okay.
charge a thing. Download 3 questionnaires. The first is the emotional needs questionnaire. The second is the Love Busters questionnaire. The third is the marital problem analysis. Free
Okay.
of charge. Print them out, fill them out, look at each other and say, okay, this is what you're telling me I need to do.
Okay.
And so I'm going to do it. What you are asking me to do, I'm going to do it. And there are 10 emotional needs. What emotional needs do I need to improve in? And there are 6 love busters. What love busters do I need to learn to avoid?
Okay.
And there's material on the website on all of those things. It's all free of charge. Now, if you want to spend $15, you can buy His Needs, Her Needs,
Okay.
which explains how to meet the most important emotional needs. Another $15, you can buy Love Busters, which tells you how to avoid love. But to be honest with you, it's all on the website, and
Okay.
it's all free of charge.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I think, yeah, and I've
I
been on
just
the website.
go to the website, and you'll find out exactly what you need. We have a show, daily radio show, where people write in
Yeah,
questions to Joyce, mbradio@marriagebuilders.com. We answer those questions. We not only answer them on the radio, but I write back and I give emails to the person who wrote it in
nice,
to give
nice.
them a little more, give them a more detail. Um, we offer a lot of help.
Yeah, that's great. I have so appreciated. I could totally tell we could do a part one, part two, part three. But I know your time is valuable, and this has been great. But I would love to maybe talk with you again about some. I mean, because we can probably take a deep dive in any one of those different directions. Also, I would love to talk with you about real estate and some of the stuff you've done there. I mean, it seems like we just have. I mean, I married my sweetheart, you know, and so just a lot of things we have in common. And I was so impressed with what you had to say, and I'm inspired. And hey, thank you for your time today. And any
I'm
last minute?
delighted to have met you, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
we
thank
hope
you.
to get I hope to get together with you. I'm going to be at the church Thursday with another group.
Oh, you are nice. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
you might want to attend.
you'll have to do that. And
It's at noon. Yeah,
okay.
same
And what
same
same spot?
place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Do you do a lot of work with that church?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. It's got to go wherever you're
I
influenced.
show up wherever I'm invited.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good policy. Well, thanks again, Dr. Harley, for your time today, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon. Well, you won't get rid of me because I'll be hounding you. We'll talk again soon. So thanks again, and you have a great rest of your day. Okay.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye now.